Hi there, and welcome back. So let's continue with our lesson. And what we'll do now is we will make use of a Kotlin Coroutine scope to move all of our background tasks using the Kotlin Coroutine scope. So previously we have made use of a async tasks, but let's do the same thing and let's see how we can do the same thing in a very less code using a Kotlin Coroutine scope. And we don't have to manage all of the async tasks and do all of this stuff that we have done over here, creating a different class. And right, so we have done a lot of things over there. So let us create our first Kotlin Coroutine scope over here, which will be of a global global scope. So that's come from the Kotlin X Coroutines. Just import that one and dot will just launch it. Sorry, ln launch. So this will launch our Coroutine scope over here, and we'll see all of the scope on our coming lecture. First of all, just we will try to understand how to move in our replicate our async tasks using a Coroutine scope over here. So don't worry about the global scope and launch all of this. We'll see in our coming lecture. So what I will do is I'll just copy all of this from here and just paste it inside this one, and instead of return I will just say as a val bitmap, right? So bitmap equals to, I will convert that bitmap. So now we have launched a Coroutine scope over here, and what I will do now is I will just comment out this one, so I don't need that one, and I have these things, and what I will do is I will try to set that particular image view after we have a bitmap, and just copy this one and paste it over here. And now let's try to run our application, and let's see what is the error that we will get. So we will get some error over here, and we'll try to fix that one. And we'll go to the logcat over here, and if you go over here we have an error. Just click on that one. You can see that error is over here. And what does this error actually tell us is that you can see, let's go and see that only the original thread that created a view hierarchy can touch its view. So basically that means that this global scope that launch has created a background thread, and we are actually trying to set up our view on a background thread. So only that the main thread can access to particular this one, so which we have set up our view. So only in the main thread we can set up our view, but we are actually doing it from the background. So if you see over there, it says that the called from the wrong thread exception. So what does this means? That it is running in the background thread, and we are setting up the view in a background thread. So that doesn't make sense, right? So it will have a error. So only the original thread that created the view hierarchy can touch the views. So view are always in the main thread. So always take a note that whenever we are accessing anything in the view, that view means that anything that you see on the screen, that we have to make use of the main thread. So how do we make use of the main thread over here? So we can just go and create a launch another scope over here. This is a global scope, and we'll create another launch over here inside this Coroutine scope. You can see this is a Coroutine scope over here. If you take a note away, this is a Coroutine scope. And don't worry about the Coroutine scope, we will take up in our coming lecture. So let's create, or let's switch the thread. So currently it is in a background thread, and let's switch it to the main thread. So I'll just say launch over here. So launch is launch. And now since we are inside the Coroutine scope, we don't have to say that the global scope that launch, or any Coroutine scope that launch. Since we are already inside this Coroutine scope, we can just make it of the launch, and we can create a multiple scope inside this. We can launch a multiple scope within this Coroutine scope. So I will say over here in the launch, what I will say is I'll pass the argument over here, and I will say as a dispatcher dot io. And if you, okay, let me try to show you it one more time. So I will say dispatcher, so which comes from the Kotlin X Coroutines. So make use of this one. Okay, so Kotlin X, that comes Kotlin X dot coroutines. Just make sure of this one, and I'll just, you have a multiple dispatcher over here, and we'll take up one by one in our coming lecture. But for now, I will just make use of a main, so which means that it is in a main thread. So dispatcher.main I'll make use, and now I'll set up this image view in the main. So I have launched another scope inside this current coroutine scope and switch it to the main thread. So this is running in the background thread, and now I switch it to the main thread. So in the main thread, I will set up the image view. So let's run the application now. Let's try to open the Illuminator, and now you can see that we have the image over here. That's perfectly fine and it's loading correctly. So this is a very simple way, instead of creating a separate class and managing the async tasks, right, and doing the background thread and having a callback. So that's a lot of tasks that we have to do, but you can see with the help of the Coroutines, we can just simply launch a background thread and perform all of our tasks. And whenever we want to pass the data to our main thread, we just switch the thread to a main and perform our views over here. So that's how simple we can do with a coroutine scope. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and let's see some more thing over here that we can do. So let's see the thread that we're trying to set up over here. So let me log the D over here, and let me try to put the tag, and let's try to get the current thread that we are. So let's see that this scope is running on which thread. So I will say that the thread, sorry for that, the thread dot get the current thread, right, and I can get the name from that particular thread. Okay, so we have the log the current thread, and let me also launch put it over here. Let me put it over here. So let's see we are in which thread. So this should log the thread, and let me try to run the application, and I will try to just copy this one and go to the logcat, and instead of error I will go to the debug and filter out by this particular activity. So you can see that default dispatcher walk2, that is a background thread of the coroutine, and another one is the main thread. So we have switched to main thread over here, and this is a background thread. And you can see there are some inappropriate blocking method call. So what we can also do over for that one, this is launching the background thread, but actually if you go click control and click over here, it will take you to the launcher. It's going to the coroutine scope over here, and if I go to the launch over here, let me go to the launch section, that is creating a coroutine that's starting the default. So previously, if you saw over here, we have a multiple dispatcher, which is of the main IO default row. So here basically it's going to start in a default. By default, it's going to launch in a default dispatcher. But let's switch that one. So I will switch it to I will say as a dispatcher dot, I'll switch it to the main IO. So dispatcher.io, and that's some of the previous warning we were getting has been removed. And now let's try to run again and see the thread that we are over here in the which thread, and over here which thread. Let me go to the logcat, and you can see we are in dispatcher.walker.1, which is the background thread, right, and this is the main thread that we are having. So that's all for this lesson, and I hope you enjoyed this one, and you can see how easy it's to create a background thread and to switch to the main thread. So that's really easy, right? So we don't have to do a handler or create a callback and create a handler. All of these things have been removed. So that's how easy we can create a background task using our Kotlin Coroutines and switch the thread. So there is nothing to worry about how to switch the thread and leaking the memory. So like that is all of this has been overcome with the Coroutines. So let's meet up in the next lecture. Till then, have a great day.